What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. And this is, of course, the Trust the Bank podcast. If you're watching this first segment on YouTube, listen to us talk about J.K. Dobbins. Go check out the podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And you can check out all three segments, down below. And if you're, listening on the podcast, thank you so much. Leave a review, rate. It really helps. It really does help out the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to help out the channel, leave a podcast review, even if you don't listen to the podcast. The podcast is the show. It's just a podcast platform. So it's really the same thing. So let us know your guys' thoughts on all the topics that we talk about. But Joshua, this last game, we saw J.K. Dobbins return from his, kind of cleanup surgery that he had mid-season. And there are lots of different takes on how he looked. The statistics look great. But then at the same time, there were plays where people felt like, oh, it looks like he's hobbling. It looks like he's really struggling to run. He had a 44-yard run, and people were criticizing him because they felt like he was limping a little bit. What is your thought on J.K. Dobbins right now? How does he fit? Is he healthy? Is he our clear number one? What's going on with J.K.?
I mean, when we win, there's always an issue. When we lose, there's always an issue. They find anything with any player on the Ravens roster, and they'll talk about him, like a dog. But hey, as long as we got the W, right? But I will say that J.K. Dobbins, anybody that's coming back from an injury, they're not gonna look as fluent as they once were. They're gonna knock the rust off or dust off per se, and that's exactly what it was. To see him come out and run the ball, go over 100 yards, that hasn't been done in a while by one of our running backs. Shout out to J.K. He clearly made a statement to the Ravens organization and to the fans like, hey, I'm back and I'm ready to help lead this team to a playoff push and playoff berth. And honestly, I'm all for it. Did sometimes he look like he was wobbling after a play or hobbled? Yeah. I mean, shucks, you keep on getting laid on by 220 pounders to 360 pounders. I think you'll be wobbling too, a little limp, a little gimp here and there. I mean, how? It was like the 14-yard cutback, and the way he brought his whole right leg over to try to make the juke to cut up the field, it wasn't no regular juke. So, I mean, this is going to happen. At least we don't have, a Cam Akers that had injuries, and he's still not recovering. He ended up being cut from the Rams roster. At least, our guys are coming back from injury and still trying their best to put to give their best effort. Even with Gus Edwards too, that's someone else that we can also bring up in the conversation. That's also recovered from injury. He was limited in certain games and certain plays with his running, and we've seen with him not being, I guess we could say 100%, where he hasn't been effective. But with J.K. Dobbins coming back from this clean scope surgery, he looked effective Sunday, excuse me. And he looked great to me, man. He looked great to me. I'm glad to have him back on that offense, especially with Lamar Jackson out.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of ironic because this is Ravens Steelers football. It's not supposed to look pretty, and I don't think he looked 100% true to form. But at the same time, a lot of people were criticizing that one play, the 44-yard run where he gets tackled by Minkah Fitzpatrick. I don't think people realize how fast Minkah Fitzpatrick is, and Minkah Fitzpatrick had an angle on him. J.K. Dobbins on that run was the 9th fastest ball carrier of any player in the NFL this season. He hit a high speed, and a lot of people are like, oh, he looks slow. That's the angle of the television, the angle of the camera, and the angle that Minkah Fitzpatrick took, because it looks like he gets caught from behind, but in reality, Minkah's to the side. And so he was able to kind of close that gap and get to him. And when someone's closing that gap, he tried to slow up and kind of push him to the side to be able to get by him. He wasn't able to do so, and so he ended up getting tackled into the ground. But that was a play where I was not looking at it like, man, J.K. Dobbins isn't. I was looking at it like, man, he has that burst. He was able to hit that hole, and he was hitting holes all game long. Is his top speed 100%? I don't know if it is, but at the same time, he is effective at 80%. Whatever he's playing at, he is extremely effective and is very valuable to this Ravens offense. So, having him get out there and get reps, I think is more important than worrying about whether or not he is truly 100%. Because with injuries like that, the whole problem with why he got surgery was hey, I don't feel 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And he afterwards has said, like, okay, I feel way better. This is much more clean. And he's, because he had to recover from the initial ACL tear that he had.
Right.
And he was recovering incorrectly. His leg wasn't 100%. So he kind of had to run a certain way to make it feel better and manage the pain and do all these things. And now it's like, okay, now you're good. Let's get you back to full speed. And that comes with reps, and that comes with remembering how to take contact. He hasn't played in a while. He hasn't played very much, really since his rookie year, and he only played about half of that season, not because of injuries, but because we weren't really running the ball with him. We had Mark Ingram, and I don't know why we were using Mark Ingram that year. Mark Ingram did not look good in 2020, but we were using him in that sense. So J.K. Dobbins, yeah, was not his best game, in terms of the visual appeal, the on tape maybe wasn't his best game, but he went up against a really good defense and was explosive. That's all I can ask for. Like, I would much rather him be explosive than go out there and be like, man, he looked really fluid out there, but he had 14 carries for 47 yards. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like that's what people are looking for. Oh, we want J.K. Dobbins to be 100% back and to dominate. It's like, well, yeah, but he's dominating and he's not even at 100%.
And that's the thing, when it comes to running backs, though, the running back has been devalued, over the years. I mean, they've now given the career expectancy, 3 to 5 years now, even if that. So I mean, when you get one of your studs like this, he's still only thing JK has hit the age of 25. So he still has a younger body. He's still able to recover quick, and it still shows that, hey, I still can do it. That's the good thing about it. But I also want to bring up the fact, McConnell, this has happened more than once for one of our Ravens players. They get surgery, they get back on the field, they're feeling good. Next thing they re-injure that same area, and it's always an issue. Oh, it wasn't a clean scope, or we got to do this, we got to do that. Does that say something about our teams? Not conditioners, but our team surgeon or the facility or the doctors that we're partnered with? Because I feel like if that person has to constantly get a surgery, okay, they're good. Slap them on the back, and then they got to come back and redo it all over again. It's like, hey, are we checking these guys out? Are we doing a double take to really make sure that these guys are fully healed or fully, recovered, or that the surgery really was 100% absolute perfect? Because when we hear about other teams and their players get hurt and things of that nature, you don't hear them going back to get a clean scope. Once they get the surgery and they recover, they're back on the field.
Yeah, I think it comes down to two parts when you're looking at returning from injury. I think the first part is the player wants to be out there. J.K. Dobbins was very adamant
Of course.
and was like, no, I'm going to play. And I think he wanted to push himself to be out there as soon as possible. And also the team doctors are out there, and injuries are tough. Injuries are very tough to come back from.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many injuries today, even like a torn ACL, torn Achilles, where it's like, okay, these were in some sense career-ending injuries, a while back.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, people are frustrated that David Ojabo isn't back. It's like, major injury like 9 months ago. Like people want them back so quickly because, the way that medical advancement has come, everybody is different. And the timeline that you're told is like, okay, yeah, you could come back in 9 weeks or 9 months, not 9 weeks. You could come back in 9 months. And so they're kind of thinking about that. All right, yeah, Adrian Peterson did it. Terrell Suggs did it.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I? I want to come back as soon as possible. And in some sense, there's a lot of injuries where you can come back and, like right now, JK is probably like 80, 85%.
Yeah.
You can come back at 80, 85% and be fine, not have risk of re-aggravating, and work yourself back up to 100. There's other injuries where it's like, okay, no, you need to wait until you are 100% healed before you get back out on that football field. It's all different. And it's, a lot of cases, it's even like body to body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every single person's structure is different, and the way that they heal is a little bit different. So, yeah, the doctor may be looking at it and say like, "Hey, you know what? A lot of times you're good, like at 80%." But maybe there's like 5% of people where it's like, okay, they get re-injured. And that comes down to the coaching staff and the medical personnel and sometimes it comes down to the player where they ask them, they say, hey, you could play. There is possible risk of re-aggravation or re-injury, but you could play. Do you want to tolerate that or do you want to wait a little bit? J.K. Dobbins is the type of player he is. If you give him the opportunity, he's going to get out there on that football field, and that's one of the things that I love about him is that work ethic,
Yeah.
because he wants to get better and he wants to be out there, and I think he showed like even when he's at 80%, like he's the best running back on this team.
Now that I can agree with. He's definitely, he's going to help us make that push, especially against, these next couple of opponents.